and so on. So tonight we're going to do a testimony, tango and talk. I'm not sure who's speaking, but one of the two is going to do the speaking. But I'm very excited because Tuck's a big part of Celebrate Recovery, and he's just such living proof on a lot of fronts right now. We've seen the lack of growth, as it were, the change in him that's fantastic. So we're really looking forward to hearing his testimony tonight. And so, Tuck, the stage is yours, and thank you for doing your testimony.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. Good evening.
It's not on yet. There we go. Oh, is everybody excited to be here tonight? All right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Tuck. I am a grateful believer in our Savior Jesus Christ, and I struggle with PTSD, anger, anxiety, depression, pain, pride, single-mindedness, procrastination, financial stress, and all the isms you can imagine. But today, I'm struggling with my own self-worth. Today is a highlighted day for me. I am celebrating 1,389 days sober. And if you haven't guessed yet, I just celebrated a birthday. That's why there's birthday cake back there.
Okay, happy birthday.
Thank you. All right. I was born in Nuremberg, Germany, 43 years ago yesterday, to parents that loved me unconditionally, a wonderful sister. As far back as I can remember, God was not in the center of my family's life. As a child, I didn't have a relationship with them. The only thing I really knew was that my best friend at the time hated going to church, hated being Catholic, and hated that he had to block out an entire day, and everything that he did was treated as a sin by his parents. That was my first look into religion as a whole, and I didn't want to have any part of that. Throughout my childhood, I struggled with just being me. Year after year, I realized that I'm not Sean, I'm Don's little brother. We had the same teachers, same circle of friends. We went to the same schools. It became very easy for me to just ride her coattails of her success and just stay by. It wasn't until 1993 when my father decided to retire from the United States Army after 26 years. In the middle of my 8th grade year, he retired, so we moved out to town, right outside the gate of the base that I grew up on. I was becoming a young man. I was trying to find my own identity, and I acted out. I became the proverbial bad apple. I was searching for myself. God was not on my radar. I acted out and got into trouble, but God was working in my life, because even though I was with that crowd of troublemakers, he made me feel like the square peg in the round hole. I didn't belong there. A few months after I started getting in trouble, I had to go see the guidance counselor. He was a new guy, but God had already put him in my life once before. This guidance counselor was actually my 6th grade science teacher from years earlier, whom I hadn't seen since he deployed for the 1st Gulf War. It was a divine intervention. He said, I know you better than this. I know that you're a better person than this. And that really helped set me on a path. And that was one encounter with somebody God put in my life that helped redirect me into the right path. Hebrews 11:1 reads, now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. and I truly believe that. I wasn't looking for it, I didn't see it, and it was there. But God still wasn't on my list of priorities, but He was working in my life. Over the summer of my 8th and 9th grade year, my dad, now retired, started taking my sister and I to a Christian non-denominational church. I just went with the flow. Children were not allowed in the service, so we stayed with the youth. The youth leaders were good, but God was not the center of that youth group. However, God was working in my life. I had a dad who did not drink. He wasn't physically abusive. He was an on-again, off-again smoker, but he was trying to fill the God-shaped hole in his life. Mom, who's now my best friend, had a 2-beer limit after work, never smoked, wasn't physically abusive either. Overall, I lived in a very stable household. In 9th grade, God put another angel in my life. His name was Sergeant Major Paul Gray. He was my junior ROTC instructor. The day I got my schedule, I went to his class, full of attitude and sass. And I was like, listen, I grew up military. I do not want to be here. The gentleman said, give it 1 semester, and then I will let you go. No questions asked. So, after that, I was given a squad of 8 cadets. That was my freshman year. 4 years later, 3 national championships later, 2 honor unit with distinction awards later, and 1 guest appearance as the MC at the ball of the Master of Ceremonies, I graduated with high school with honors. I met my recruiter shortly after I graduated high school in the most unorthodox way humanly possible. Ask me about it later if you want to know the down and dirty in it. But to make a long story short, after seeing that recruiter in his dress blues, all the attention that he received, I wanted to be that man. That was a Friday afternoon, or Friday evening. On Monday morning, I was in his office. On Wednesday, I was at MEPS getting sworn in, and on Friday, I was on my way to Paris Island. I spent the next 13 weeks of my life looking forward to every Sunday. And they weren't because I was trying to escape my drill instructors. I actually enjoyed going to the Protestant service that they offered. I was looking for that filling of that ever-changing God-shaped hole that I had in my life. And unfortunately, Marine boot camp, you only get a small window to actually worship. So I look forward to it every weekend. And God was working with me. He was making me a United States Marine. And that's something that money can't buy. So on December 22nd, I graduated from boot camp. My parents noticed the change in me immediately. I finally was my own person. I had accomplished something no one in my family had done. I was a United States Marine. But I found out that I wasn't the first. My dad and my grandpa were both Marines before me. So I now had the pride of earning it myself, but also the pride of being a 3rd-generation Marine. Now I had to do everything in my power to make those men proud. Next phase of my training was a two-step process. 51 days of infantry training and 21 days in my primary military occupational specialty, which was a infantry machine gunner. I got to shoot the big ones. The important part is we had weekends off. That's where my trouble truly began. I didn't go to church. I didn't have God in the center of my life. I was a great Marine by day, but I was a terrible person by night. That kept on going. My first duty station, just like school, I had a serious drinking problem. But I was a functional alcoholic. We know what that is, right? I was a violent person when I was drinking. Even though I'd strayed away from God, God never left my side. His protection over me protected me from serious injury on numerous occasions. Some of those occasions were I was rappelling on a 200-foot rappel down the sheer face of a mountain, and my safety person didn't break the rope as I was falling, and I fell down like a lawn dart into the ground. I was lucky I was wearing a pack, a hydration pack. I hit the ground and I crumpled like a sack of potatoes. God was looking out for me. I had a twisted ankle and a broken hydration pack, and I was sore. That's God's work. Another time, about 2 months later, me and another Marine were left on guard duty in the desert for more than 24 hours. No water, no food, no shelter from the elements. We were found. God was looking out for both of us that day, because other than dehydration and some sunburn, being hungry, we were absolutely fine. God has worked in my life even though I didn't have him in the center. And the last one I'm going to highlight is during the course of my career, I've been to many different training schools, one of which was where I was learning to be an aggressor. I was helping train being an aggressor for our first trip over to our deployment site. Me and a group of Marines were blocking a helicopter landing zone with big giant pillars made of concrete, weighed a couple 100 pounds apiece. We set them up in a teepee, and as we were checking the teepee out, I got stupid and I got too close. Now this beam that I would estimate to be 400 or 500 pounds could have landed on me and crushed me right down the middle. But I honestly believe God's hand was in there and he pushed it to the side. It landed on my arm and on my leg. No broken bones, bumps and bruises and scrapes. Now that is God working in my life. But I hadn't learned my lesson yet. God still was not on my radar. You know, the same pattern kept happening over and over again. My command absolutely loved me. I was a great Marine. To the command, to my junior Marines, I was an absolute tyrant. Not only because I was a violent drunk, but I was just mean. Just mean. The events of September 11th changed my life forever. My unit was already forward deployed into the Middle East region after September 11th, and our unit got called out like September 13th. Gentlemen, it just got real. Everything that you've trained for just got real. You're going to the Middle East. I spent the next 18 months flying in and out of the Middle East. I don't know where I was. All I know is that I had a job to do, and that's what I was doing. Following the return home, I re-enlisted. I said, hey, I'm going to do this again. I really enjoy it. Still, God wasn't on the radar. But I lucked out. I re-enlisted. I got to go to the School of Infantry and be an instructor at the school that I graduated from 4 years earlier. I was an instructor. I was more on the prim and proper side because I had to have a face and I had to have a good appearance because I was an instructor. That all changed when I had an incident with one of my students, the young Marine. Stabbed me in the leg, and I proceeded to lose my cool and completely just lose my cool. I'll tell you deeper about it if you ever ask. Long story short, I got busted down from E5 to E3 in the same sentence. I literally got busted down at one command, got walked across base, got busted down again. Well, being an E3, I can't be an instructor, so I got dropped back to the fleet. with the same students that I had just graduated. So they all already knew who I was, what I was all about, how serious I was about being a Marine. But God was looking out for me. Again, those charges that I should have got charged with, assault, maybe attempted murder because I hit him with a rifle, were brought down to something simple like dereliction of duty because I was an instructor and I was not acting professional. And treat every weapon as if it were loaded because I didn't clear his weapon before I began to strike him with it. God was looking out. In hindsight, it was a good thing. So I returned to the fleet, a softer, less aggressive Marine Corps. But the unit I dropped to was deploying back to the Middle East. Really not going to touch on the Middle East too much, but during that deployment, generically speaking, I have suffered from combat trauma, coupled with survivor's guilt and a host of mental health problems to go along with it. Now, in my statement here, in my testimony, I wrote down all of Romans 13, 1 through 7, because it really justifies being in a just war. Because when I got back, I thought I was the bad person because I was not. Why was I there? Why was I there? So I'll just leave it to you to really read over Romans. Can you hear me now? I will leave it up to you to read Romans 13, 1 through 7. And it's a great read, and it definitely will help you get a perspective on when you are a combat Marine or a combat veteran, how it'll affect you and how God says it's okay because you're doing it justly. I am rambling, I do apologize. Following my return home, I was on a workup for my next deployment. We were home for 2 weeks, and the unit was on a 10-month workup. So we literally got home, got some time off, came back, started doing a workup again to deploy again. God was looking out for me. I don't think he wanted me to go back to the sandbox ever again. So during training, I hurt my back and my knee so bad that I did not have enough time to rehab before I got out of the service. They would have kept me on medical hold for years because of how bad my back and my knees were. So I opted for an honorable discharge under administrative separation 3 months before the end of my second enlistment, and the only thing on my paperwork was uneligible to re-enlist. That's not a bad way to go. God said, I got you. I'm taking care of you. All right, now for the meat and potatoes. I spent about 3 months lurking around North Carolina, and I ran into this young lady when I was volunteering at the horse stables. Her name was Sarah, for those of you who know Sarah. Anyway, Sarah was my future ex-wife. Is my future, no, was my future ex-wife at the time. Sorry. We had friends in common. We didn't have a relationship. We were just acquaintances. I worked with her at the stables. She was married to another Marine, and nothing ever came back, or nothing ever came of it. So when I moved back home, I was trying to start my life, still living the normal. God was not the center of my life again, but he put somebody in my life again. About 6 months after I moved home, I'm out having coffee at one of the all-night restaurants because I'm not a sleeper at night. And in walks a girl I went to high school with, and in tow was Sarah. Fresh off a divorce, trying to get her life back online. Without going into too much detail, we became fast friends again. Eventually we got married. We had 3 kids. We were married for 11 years. And in 2018, we separated and got divorced. I'm sorry. So I'm going to fast forward all the way to 2014. I've been married since 2007, so 7 years in marriage. I was hospitalized for a back injury that was reoccurring, and it was just being affected by my job. I used to work at Quad Graphics, and I filed all my appropriate paperwork, FMLA, if everybody knows what that is. They're not supposed to give your job away. So I was out for about 8 weeks for my first back surgery, came back to work, hoping that I would get my job back. And they gave my job to somebody else. They didn't hold it. They didn't even give me the option to rotate back in on a different shift. It was gone, which also meant my pay raise, my benefits, and everything that I had earned, because they were starting me back at square one. So I complained about it. It went all the way up to a mediation with a bunch of lawyers, and they found that Quad Graphics didn't do anything wrong. So that night, I have a good front. I'm eating dinner with my family, and I excuse myself and go down to the basement. And that's when I didn't even think about it. I attempted suicide. It was just an execution. There was no thought. I went down and I was like, I'm at the end of the rope, and that's it. My son found me, which is devastating. The poor boy found me, and without going into too much detail, I ended back up at the hospital. They had to do lots of x-rays and CTs and all that kind of stuff. But other than being a little out of breath, I was fine. So I'm a suicide survivor, and I'm actually proud of being a suicide survivor, because people who have, they need to know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. God's got you. He's got other plans, just like he did for me. I've got other plans for you. So I checked into myself into the hospital. I have been doing years of treatment, medications, so many medications. My life has fallen apart. It was part of God's plans, though, because during all this, I was diagnosed with extreme, that's not how I put it, basically PTSD, and I'm using that as an umbrella. There's about 40 different subcategories, and I have an X in every box. And a major depressive disorder, which I still battle with today. It was a step back in terms of my life, but spiritually it was a step forward, because I was no longer in denial about it. I knew I had an issue, and God was just like, hey, we got it, it's out in the open, let's move on. And that's what I did. But over the next several years, I let that singular diagnosis define who I was. It was referred to by my friends that I was like this one time at band camp. Every time somebody would say something, that would be my go-to. Yeah, well, your back's not that bad because my back's this bad. And this one time at band camp, this happened to me. Enough of that. 2017, I throw my back out again. I had a second back surgery in the same spot. What was left of my disc decided it was going to squirt out the other side. And it was devastating, because I already was miserable as it was, and so I had the surgery. I didn't realize that I had an addiction. I won't say addiction right now, because at that point I didn't think I had an addiction. Show of hands, how many of you have seen House, the TV show? All right. I was popping Vicodin every 4 hours, as prescribed, on the bottom. So I wasn't abusing it, was I? Like House, just every 4 hours. On December 25th, 2017, I was so high out of my mind, I got in my car in the middle of the night to go get a cup of coffee and a 5-hour energy from Quick Trip. I was cruising at 3 miles an hour with no headlights, and I got pulled over. And I got arrested promptly. So 24 hours in jail before I sobered up. I found out that my oldest daughter was in the car with me. She saw something wrong with me and she got in the car to save me. It's a whole nother argument, a whole nother thing. But that was my absolute rock bottom. So God said to me, we're going to take care of you. And this is where it gets good. I got released from jail. I checked myself into the 3rd floor at the VA hospital. I got clean. For the first time in my life, recent life, I was clean. I had clarity. They revamped all my meds, make sure stuff didn't react, all that kind of stuff. And I told them, nothing unless I absolutely need it. I don't care how bad I beg for it. Nothing. So now when I go to the doctor, I got a note in the computer. Nothing. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Following that, I checked myself into a 6-week treatment program as an addict. I was not in denial anymore. I am an addict. I need help. God was working in my life during that point. I graduated. I also lost my dad, which should have been a stressor to cause me to relapse. But God said, I've got it. Your dad's in a good place. You go, you do what you need to do. I was finding that I was in a terrible relationship with my ex-wife because I was numb to it because I was high all the time. So my wife and I started talking separation, not because I wanted to be away from her. It was because I just needed that time to get that recovery going. During that time, I found this Christian-based recovery group, and I stumbled my broke butt up that ramp, which was the hardest thing I think I've ever had to do. And I was greeted by Tim and Heidi, who took me under their wing and have absolutely been great mentors and friends. I'm going to just skip around a little bit because I am running over. At the end of February, I get a phone call that I didn't even remember. Hey, your name came up on the list. What list, you ask? Service dog list. At this point, I didn't even remember that I applied for a service dog. I had been on the list for like 2 years. So in typical Marine fashion, I picked the biggest, the baddest, and the best of. He was not on the list. He was not one of the ones I chose. I got there for my meet and greet, and guess what happened? Those angels at Custom Canines said, all the dogs that you chose are here, but we think we have the perfect one for you. And they brought him out, and he sat between my legs, and he flipped those big floppy ears around, and he's like, you know, you're my person, I'm taking you home. And we have never looked back. We hit the ground running and have never looked back. During that early part at CR, God was really working with me. I was already at home. I had graduated from my treatment facility, and God was having me go back out to the VA hospital in Milwaukee, grab veterans who are in rehabilitation, bring them here, and then take them back, all so that they could be touched with those glorious hands. Of course, those people have come and gone and they've faded away. I do pray that they didn't relapse and didn't go into things. But that was God's work. I was still married. I was miserable. Sarah and April filed for divorce. I had already moved out. I was already in my own apartment, so I'm trying to make it work. I'm really trying to work my program. My problem was I had zero boundaries with her and my children. Zero. So I got dragged through the mud quite a bit. But that's okay, because it all comes to an end eventually. September 2018, I get hired at Sunset Bank and Savings, and I spent the next 2.5 glorious years there having a great job that accepted me for who I was and Tango for who he was. But God had other plans, because in June 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, I blew my back out tying a pair of shoes for the 3rd time. Same spot. What was left of my disc was out on the side somewhere, and I blew out the disc completely above it. And I was miserable. I was in pain, and now I'm alone. I don't even have access to my children except for on my visitation days. I was miserable, and I was alone, and I put it at the foot of the cross. I said, God, please help me out. Then I get a phone call from the VA. We are going to do a fusion on your back. Great. Another surgery. So they go in September. They open my back up. Not only do I have 2 bulged discs, but I have a bone spur in the nerve space about the size of a Mentos, which is pressing on my nerve, which is why I couldn't feel my leg. Now, the surgery was a great success. A great success. Because it's a fusion with no hardware. I actually healed. They grafted me, and I actually healed into one solid piece. That's God's work, no hardware. I'm sorry. So, God was teaching me how to be a good Christian man, establish healthy relationships, healthy boundaries, and healthy expectations from my friends, my family, and my coworkers. God is now my steering wheel, not my spare tire. All right, I have turned to Him after this surgery that I had in September, so I'm not even a year out from the fusion surgery, to guide my recovery, to guide my surgery, to guide the surgeons, and to help take the weight off. Because I know that was a big part of the perpetual cycle. So October 1st, I said, Lord, take it. Help me find the way, put the people in my life that are going to help me be healthy and be a better person. Within a couple days, I was enrolled in a program at the VA that helped me rewire diet, exercise, everything. I plateaued after losing nearly 60 pounds. I got another phone call because God was still listening, and I have Him as my steering wheel, not my spare tire. Another person from the VA called and said, hey, you qualify for the bariatric procedure because your body mass index is like 53%. And we need to get you down, even though you've already lost. So in March, I had a gastric sleeve done in my stomach. I was released from the hospital within 24 hours because I was in that good a health. Now, since then, God has helped me so much. Grand total, I've lost 136 pounds so far. Now that's God working in my life. He is giving me the motivation. He is giving me the tools. But it's not about my weight loss. It is about how God has made me feel. I have, since 2017, or 2018, I've been volunteering with the Welcome Home Group. I've been volunteering with Misfits for Jesus. I have been participating with the Wisconsin Heroes Outdoors. I help with the military ministry. My passion is custom canines. Any opportunity I get out, fundraise, put the word out, let them know that those angels are saving lives. And most recently, I became a volunteer at the Waukesha Civic Theater. Just an extra set of hands, doing kind of whatever. But Tango's going to be a superstar. He'll be in Annie next year when they play Annie. He's playing Sandy. Now, I'm not bragging about myself, but God is working in my life as the center of my life. I am currently enrolled in a step study with these gentlemen, and it is amazing. I've enrolled in school. I start school in about 2 weeks. I'm going back for cybersecurity, and my son refers to me as the oldest living freshman. In conclusion, after 43 trips around the sun, I am currently 189 pounds. I want to lose a little bit more before I start balancing things out. I have a stable relationship with my family, and it was rocky for the longest time until God told me, you need to listen to me so that I can help you fix what's wrong with your family. And he did better than I could have ever asked for. I laid it at the foot of the cross. And we're kosher. I am now a man of faith, and I live it and breathe it as much as a human can. Obviously things cause drama, and I learned today humility and pray before you have a meltdown, because God really takes care of you. I am today physically, mentally, and spiritually stronger than I have ever been in my entire life. And that is just proof that God's miracles are true. God could have let me go and called me home a long time ago. He's got other plans for me. Thank you for everybody who has supported me over the years and continue to support me, and I hope my testimony has touched at least one person and helped save, I'm going to refer to it as save a life. One person. That's all I ask for. Take something from it, share it with somebody. Also, I have a video testimony that is really fast-paced that I have already posted on YouTube. On YouTube, sorry. Ask me later if you want the information on where to find it. It is a lot of reading, but it really gives you an in-depth of what I talked about today, and it's illustrated, which makes it a little bit more fun. So thank you guys, thank you very much. And I do have a song that we're going to listen to, and this song is kind of my go-to when I really just need to relax. It is just amazing.